Take a look.
Fox News military analyst Colonel David Hunt joins me now. All right. Good evening, Colonel.
Hi.
It's good to have you back on Justice. I want to talk a little bit about the president and how the military is seen or being treated differently since he's been president. And, of course, since he's been in office, he added $700 billion to build up our military, which, of course, is, as he says, I believe, the strongest in the world. But in addition to that, we just had funding for the military and USMCA. So they got their raises. I mean, it's all good on the financial front, or so it appears. But I want to talk more specifically about some of the cases that the president has involved himself in. And specifically, I think there's one that you would wanted to talk about. Which one was that?
Yeah, Matt Goldstein.
Right.
Yeah, you and I talked about this.
Yes.
Thank you for the help, by the way. Matt Goldstein was a captain, Special Forces. They were chasing a bomber who had killed some Marines a week before. Captured the bomber, turned him to the Afghanistan has let him go. Matt Goldstein's team hunted him down and killed him. It's a high-value target, authorized to kill. He's been very honest about all of this. The Army went after him, never heard of this, took his Distinguished Service Cross away, all his medals, and all of his qualifications. It's a classic case where a presidential pardon has to overcome a system that went wild.
But that's the question. Why would a system go wild if, as I seem to kind of gather from what you said, a high-value target is someone that
it's on a list to kill.
He's on a kill list.
Absolutely.
All right. So is there a deep state in the military?
There's a big, yeah. If the deep state means is there a bureaucracy that, yes, of course there is. And it's a huge, Pentagon's 30,000, 36,000 people. So, right. but this is a senior officer, Secretary of the Army, 4-star generals, who saw this as a bad thing.
Why would they see that as a bad thing? We're all on the same side.
No, we're not, as we'll talk later. Many of these people are on one side, their own. It's about promotions, not about the country, certainly not about the Matt Goldsteins. Goldstein, by the way, never lied about this. He applied to the Central Intelligence Agency and told about it. He actually talked about it on Fox. This was 10 years ago. He had his promotions held up for 11 years. This is a good thing. This is really a bad justice thing that the president overturned. The couple other ones are somewhat problematic, but Goldstein straight down the middle.
All right, so you see Goldstein straight down the middle, and the thing that people like me have a lot of trouble understanding is, you know, we have an enemy, we're at war, we're not there to make friends, it's not a kumbaya, and if someone does what he's ordered to do, and then you come back and someone in the Pentagon or someone above you decides you should be tried for murder, you know, whether it's Gallagher or Goldstein or Lawrence, and we're just talking about Goldstein now. I mean, it's kind of, you say to yourself, what am I missing?
What we're missing is that the United States conducts its wars differently. We do it with laws. It's not a banana republic. We have ethics. We have rules of engagement. We have uniform code of military justice. It's much more difficult in many cases to fight in the U.S. military than it is for other countries. And that's because we're the greatest country in the world and it's the greatest military. Mistakes are made, and there's accountability to be had. What happens sometimes, like with Goldstein, the system breaks down. Somebody takes it personal. Somebody did not do their homework. They've got an axe to grind. Whatever the reason is, it was wrong. But the but is, you cannot, for example, murder a civilian. You cannot. Yeah,
but we're talking high-value target.
No, that was a straight-up
But it went astray. It went awry because somebody, you know, decided that
a lot of somebodies.
And so will those lot of somebodies who made a decision to charge Goldstein with murder years later, are those somebodies going to be made accountable, or do they just go along their merry way?
This is where I think the president didn't go far enough. There's this case and a few others in which the people who did this, caused this trouble for Goldstein, need to go down the road. They need to be fired as a minimum. They need to be called out.
But they're still there.
Yeah, or retired. And that's this part of this doesn't work. And this president might enjoy doing some of that. There's some accountability that has to happen at the very senior rank this report that came out of the Washington Post is a classic.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about that. Maybe
Sure.
it's the time to do it. You know, there's an article in the Washington Post from a couple of weeks ago that talks about a confidential trove of government documents obtained by the Post reveals senior U.S. officials failed to tell the truth about the war in Afghanistan throughout the 18-year campaign, making rosy pronouncements they knew to be false and hiding unmistakable evidence. The war had become unwinnable.
At the end of Vietnam, there was a thing called the Pentagon Papers, which was a study, an after-action study of the war in Vietnam. It was very critical. It was done by the government. It was stolen, given to the New York Times. It was a Supreme Court case. It got released.
Right.
It was devastating for any of us who lost people there or fought there, that the government had lied about. They knew we weren't winning, couldn't win the war. We just repeated history. 3 administrations, the Bush administration, Obama administration, and the Trump administration, have lied. The military inside has lied, and the military and the Department of Defense have lied to the president and the Congress, and in turn, we've been lied to as citizens.
All right, so you see this as legitimate, and you're not at all surprised.
This is 600 people interviewed. This is a government study that the Post went after for 3 years. Another one coming out on Iraq. This is devastating. There needs to be a cleansing of the military.
How do you do that?
A lot of people. First of all, it's a top-heavy organization. You got people have to go down the road. They have to get fired, or worse. What's happened here is now we're undercutting what we stand for. There's 600 people testified on this. We've lost thousands of guys in this war.
So
tens of thousands wounded.
How do you decide who to fire?
I'll start with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, whose name is Milley. He's in the report. There's a guy named McRaven who just retired. Just people who ought to know these names, who was in the SEAL Commander when we got bin Laden. Mm-hmm. All of these guys are part of this, and it's a large number, and it would take a big axe, and that the president can swing.
All right, Colonel David Hunt, thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Great